John Martin's looking to you. John Martin's looking to you.
Yes, and I'm Prime Minister ensuring that I'm going to deliver Brexit for the British people.
But you can't tell me that you would now vote leave in a referendum.
Because I think, Iain, when you come, I could sit here and I could say, oh, I'd still vote Remain or I'd vote Leave, just to give you an answer to that question. I'm being open and honest with you. What I did last time round was I looked at everything and came to a judgment, and I'd do exactly the same this time round. But we're not having another referendum.
Your predecessor as Secretary of State was admitted that 3.2 million families under universal credit would be worse off by £2,500 a year. That was before the last budget, which put another £1,000 onto the work allowance, which will benefit working families by £630 a year. That still leaves those, even if all those 3.2 million families are the exact ones to benefit from that £630 extra, that still leaves those 3.2 million families on average £2,100 a year worse off. These are low-income families already who are struggling to get by. Was this the department's intention? Is it your intention as Secretary of State to make 10% of the country's families that much worse off?
By 2020, we will be spending £2 billion more than we would have been spending under the previous legacy benefits. So I don't accept that, which seems to be at the centre of your question, that universal credit is about, it's just spending less money. What it is about is making sure that
people are affected.
Yes. I'm just putting a sort of counterpoint, which is that by 2020 we'll be spending £2 billion more than we would have under the legacy benefit system. So the point about universal credit is to try to obviously protect the vulnerable, make sure that they are looked after, but also the core of it is this plan to try to make sure that people can get into work and have the additional money without having the terrible cliff edge along the way. And from that point of view, it is succeeding, and we know that people are going into work who wouldn't have been doing so before.
Right, just a quick update on the rent situation and what I call the rent trap that you can get into if you decide to let the universal credits pay the rent directly to your landlord. Now, I made that decision. I thought it'd make it easy for me and everybody else, but obviously I was wrong, because now I'm in even more rent arrears because this month's rent, according to my landlord, hasn't been paid for this month. But I was told on the 21st of November, when I receive my benefit payment, my allowance, personal allowance as I call it, that they would also pay my landlord the rent that I normally pay. But that doesn't appear to have happened. So now I've got a letter from my landlord, which is an housing association, saying that I'm now in even more rent arrears. At Christmas as usual. And these things always seem to happen around Christmas, so I'm not going to be able to get this sorted out now until well into the new year. So that's that. So that's the update of that situation with the rent.
Saying that other people are getting more money is not going to help them in their circumstances. Do you agree, Secretary of State?
All I'm saying is that the money was so there's more money being spent, and it's targeted on the people who are most at need.
Ruth is a different point, Peter.
Okay.
She's saying, nevertheless, whatever you're doing with some people, there's a substantial number of people who will be worse off, sometimes very worse off. Now, how do we square that one?
So So first of all, we're spending more money than before overall. The second thing, as the Secretary of State was saying, one of the advantages of universal credit is you don't have the complexity of 6 benefits where you have to keep claiming, reclaiming.
We know all that.
We know
That's,
Permanent
which
secretary.
is okay, which
So
is worth
it's easier
another,
to get less, isn't
which
it?
is worth another 2.4 billion.
Can I just explain that the rationale under
costs less
universal
common.
credit that particularly concerns me, and why so much more money is going into it, is because it's reducing the clawback, which under housing benefit was 80%, down to the standard 63%, which none of us would disagree with. But what that means is that people in areas of higher cost rent and with higher wages are seeing more money in their pockets. Those are the people who, under the legacy system, under universal credit, are actually the ones who are better off. Unfortunately, what happens in any area where you have more demand than supply of housing and you have renters with more money in their pockets is that rents go up. Universal credit is going to increase the cost of rents. It is going to increase the amount of money going to working people with high rents. But as a quid pro quo, what is happening is that these 3 million plus families who are on low incomes, 74% of them own their own homes, so they're actually people who've tried to do the right thing. They are the ones who are going to be substantially worse off. The work allowance that was put in the budget, £1,000, goes nowhere near the £3,500 that was taken off lone parents' working allowance in the 2015 budget. It goes nowhere near putting right what was the original intention of universal credit before that 2015 budget took the extra £12 billion a year out of it. That is, I think, the whole committee's key concern about what universal credit is doing to make poor people, a substantial number, 3.2 million families, so much poorer that they can't get out of debt.
More than 400,000 people lost their Jobseekers allowance in less than a year because of new penalties introduced by the government. Ministers say the penalties are used only as a deterrent, and people who lose the allowance aren't doing enough to find a job. Our social affairs correspondent Michael Buchanan reports.
Figures out today show that 580,000 penalties were handed out between October of last year and June this year. That's a 6% increase on the same period last year. In total, 397,000 people lost their benefit, most for 4 weeks.
It is for your best interests to get a job, and we do all we can do. So the people who get sanctions are willfully rejecting support for no good reason.
With the economy now growing and jobs being created, the government is determined that people move quickly off benefits and into work. If some need to be penalised to get that message, so be it, say ministers.
Now, the government's ambitious plans to get tens of thousands of the unemployed back to work is failing. A Channel 4 News investigation into one of the biggest agencies involved in the work programme, A4E, shows only 3 in 100 people on its books are getting a job lasting more than 13 weeks. That's way below the target the government set the company if it wanted to keep the contract. Our social affairs editor, Jackie Long, has this exclusive report.
Their pledge to improve people's lives by getting them back to work.
People must have these skills to be job ready. Tick the ones that you feel you're okay with.
But tonight we reveal figures which show A4E are improving the lives of very few. We've obtained the first real data on the work programme, a programme billed by the government as a revolution in welfare to work. It simply has to succeed. But we have performance figures from A4E, the second biggest contractor on the programme, and the early results are far from good. The figures show from last June to March this year, more than 114,000 people have been put on the work programme with A4E across the UK. Of those, 21,500 have started work. That's just over 18%. But only 4,020 have stayed in work for more than 13 weeks. That's a success rate of just 3.5%. Not even reaching the government's minimum target of 5.5%. This is the latest setback for A4E, made famous by its high-profile chair, Emma Harrison.
Hello everybody, I thought you'd like to hear it first. There's some hot news and everything.
She caused outrage after paying herself a dividend of more than £8 million and later stood down after a flurry of allegations about fraud at the company. Allegations always vigorously denied. These performance figures, though, have come as no surprise to the company's critics.
That is deeply, deeply depressing, that out of every 100 people refer to them, only 3 people are in work after 3 months in the job. That is just an abysmal performance. This is a multi-billion-pound programme. And if it's not succeeding in its purpose, which is to help people out of work get back into the labour market, then again, I think we have the right to know.
We took our figures to economist Ian Mulhern at the Social Market Foundation think tank. He agreed to analyse them without knowing the name of the specific provider.
They're getting 3.5%, and that's very, very poor indeed. Most obviously, it's a reflection of over-ambitious projections from the DWP about what was possible with these programmes. For example, they have said that providers would have done substantially better than this if they'd done nothing at all.
So they'll have to accept that it is not working?
I think the government will have to accept that it's not working. I think there's no real way that they can change the figures that will be in front of them.
The government says it can't comment until official statistics on job outcomes are released in the autumn. But with one of the biggest contractors providing such poor figures almost a year in, meeting even the most basic work programme targets look a mammoth task right now.
My Lords, I thank my noble friend Lord Basson for initiating this timely debate. When the Welfare Reform Bill was being taken through this House, Baroness Hollis asked me what contribution I could make. And I explained that I had worked for 40 years, so I knew nothing of the welfare benefits. "That's fine," she said. "You can cover the self-employed." And I did. It didn't occur to me that I had a choice. That's how compelling and charismatic Patricia Hollis was. I mugged up on the subject with the help of the Low Pay Tax Unit, and I spoke several times. I learned enough to realise that the proposed universal credit system was unsuitable for the self-employed. It's rigid and mean. It doesn't take sufficient account of fluctuating earnings or seasonal variations, and the budget announcement only extends the 12-month grace period, so will change nothing. And when I last spoke about this subject, the noble lady in her reply made no reference whatsoever to the self-employed. So my first question, therefore, has to be, is the noble lady the Minister able to say what improvements will be made to the universal credit system to help the self-employed? It was accepted that the current system needed to change, and there was a hope that a comprehensive system would assist those who needed help the most. And the Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Margaret Greenwood, said on the 17th of October, "Universal credit was designed to lift people out of poverty," close quotes. I do not believe that was the intention. It was designed to save money.
Computer experts have unearthed a major security loophole in the government's own jobs website, one which leaves millions of job hunters open to identity theft. Channel 4 News has discovered that vacancies posted on the website are given minimal vetting. This makes it easy for identity thieves to use the site to harvest valuable personal data.
No one needs me to tell them how difficult it is to find a job out there at the moment, and many people are turning to the government's own job search website. Now, it's called Universal Job Match, and it was relaunched just last month in November. The Department for Work and Pensions say it promises an easy and secure way to look for work. Now, leaving aside questions of how easy it is to use, because we have had a number of complaints about that, the big question for us tonight is just how secure is this website, because we've been alerted to some alarming loopholes. We were contacted by someone who posted a fake job advert on the site, and they say they weren't vetted and the ad wasn't vetted. Now, why does this matter? Well, it matters because they got a number of responses from people, including details like scans of passports, national insurance numbers, email addresses, personal addresses, dates of birth, perfect little packages of data for identity theft. Now, earlier today, we spoke to a woman who had responded to this fake job advert.
You're supposed to feel secure using government websites, to be very honest. It's a whole load of information. It's like going to the hospital and your information is lost or papers not being destroyed. It's supposed to be secure. Government is supposed to take necessary steps to make sure people's information is not abused.
What are the departments saying or even doing about it?
Well, the Department for Work and Pensions say they do take the security of claimants' data very, very seriously. They insist they do have a number of checks in place for when employers want to register on this website. They also say that the site makes it quite clear you should never hand out bank account details or national insurance numbers until you get the offer of a job. And they say if anyone is being asked for that sort of information, they should alert their job centre.
My name is Matthew Stockwell. I was refused universal credit after returning from Spain as I wasn't recognised as being in Great Britain, even though I have been born, bred and raised in the UK.
We're talking about homelessness, let's talk about housing. We have a housing crisis. This is something, again, we are simply not talking about when we talk about the homelessness crisis. The price of rent has skyrocketed, particularly in many areas around London. It has torn away from people's wages, which have stagnated over the last 10 years. These are issues that require structural macroeconomic interventions in order to solve. And we are simply dealing with, talking about homelessness as if it is this one individual problem. And if we just give a little bit more money to local authorities, then everything will be fine. It's not. It's to do with the cost of living, the cost of housing, and it's also to do with universal credit. There are some horrifying stories about people who, for one man, for example, who misses his job centre interview because his father dies and he goes to the funeral and has all of his benefits cut and is kicked out of his house. It's this type of just arbitrary cruelty at the centre of our welfare system that's causing this stuff. Right, let's just think about this. Again, housing. Wealth inequality in this country is doubly as high as income inequality. A lot of that wealth is housing wealth. A lot of that housing wealth is concentrated in the places where people are dying because they can't afford to buy a home. That wealth needs to be taxed properly in order to pay for some of these services. I think, obviously, it's basically what's happening is the Conservatives are deciding to treat EU migrants as badly as they treat everyone else, right? This is the motivating factor behind this. And basically what it's not, the £30,000 threshold is obviously not a skills threshold.
It's a suggested threshold, of course.
It's a salary threshold. So effectively they're saying to everyone in this country that earns less than £30,000, you are unskilled, you are not valuable to this country. Sajid Javid's father, adjusted for inflation, would not have been able to get into this country on the basis of these figures. It's staggering, and it comes off the back of existing structural problems within the Home Office that they still have failed to deal with, from the Windrush scandal to all the kind of horrific failings that we've seen over the last several years.
I think it's going to be a hit. It's in front. Last time you saw, today's the 11th, yes? So your 11 o'clock appointment is going to be with the group session in here. You still sign on and everything, but yeah, it is.
Can't be this way a while back. What, I can't pass it? No, you need to move back there, please. Right, then I'll do that on my own self, innit? You need to move back.
Yes. I'll sort it out now. Going by this. No, please make yourself out. Yeah, there's other people waiting for it as well.
Silly, isn't it?
No, wait in there. So then she will come down at 11 and we'll double check. Yeah?
It's just say that job.
Yeah, but it's just they're doing a group session.
How long?
Makes more sense. What's that makes sense to you?
Okay, sir, so I'm going to have to officially ask you to leave the building because of your behaviour. You'll be contacted about your next appointment.
So you're refusing to see me on my appointment?
Due to your behaviour today, we're refusing to see you. Yes.
So what kind of behaviour made you refuse my appointment?
I asked you to leave earlier.
You asked me to leave.
To film in this building either.
Okay. Is there any signs? Is there any signs that says I can't
Sir,
film?
because he's a manager, he's allowed to choose who comes on the property. So
Yes, I heard that, but I got a meeting.
So I know that, but he's saying you haven't anymore.
I got a meeting
so
here.
if you don't leave, we'll have to physically make you leave, and we don't want to do that.
Is this a private property though?
It's his property.
It's
private.
It's
private.
Yeah. It's a public building, but it is.
Okay, so it's a public. Okay, it's still public.
Yeah, it's like any like a pub. It's a
But
public place. You can still be asked to leave,
So
can't you?
you're right. It's a public building, but you're only allowed.
And I've got a meeting as well, so I feel like you're singling me out right now.
But your meeting is cancelled now.
How is it cancelled if I still got
They've said you're not coming.
I haven't received that though.
He's told you now.
I need to receive that before I leave then.
He's told you. They're going to contact you with a new one.
Well, I need to receive that before I leave, innit? Before I leave, I need to be contacted, innit? To say, why is it not going to happen?
Because to them, isn't it?
Contact you at a later date.
At a later date.
Yes.
So what's your? Excuse me, sir. What's your name?
My name's Steve.
Steve what?
Steve.
So Steve, you're going to contact me on behalf
I'll make
of
sure I go
Bexley.
up and I'm not going to contact you. I'm going to speak to your work coach
Yeah.
and get alternative arrangements for you to be seen.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
happy to leave?
Yeah, I'm happy to leave now. Get me? I didn't have to get seen today. All of this problem from the job centre and that.
You turned up early.
Yeah, I turned up early, wanting to be seen. That's exactly how I am, innit? That's what
The problem is, obviously, they all work on all appointments, okay?
Yeah.
So that's why no one can see you then. Yeah. And then your behaviour is now causing
But
you not to
people
have
have
your
turned up
appointment.
late as well, right in front of me, but they're still sending them upstairs. Turned up 10 minutes to 15 minutes late.
Right, well,
are you still sending them upstairs?
They're running late. But if you turn up an hour early, you're not going to be seen, are you? Because someone's already scheduled in that block. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why. And he's going to speak to the department, who will then contact you and sort out alternative arrangements.
Yeah, that's
for
alright.
you.
That's alright, man. That's
You
alright
take an
then.
appointment.
Yeah, that's alright.
Shall we walk away then? Because you're still on their property.
What? This is their property?
Yes, it's still their property, yes.
Well, this is outside public pavement.
Still their property.
Yeah,
Still
but
their footprint of the building.
their property goes past here, innit? Are you both under your oath today, yeah? Are you under your oath today?
Every day.
Every day, yeah? I just gotta make sure, innit? I just gotta make sure. I'm outside, fam. I come out of their private building, though.
You're not off their premises, though.
I am off their premises.
No, you're not.
He's in their premises. I'm off. Look. You ain't even giving me personal space right about now. Like, you're in my shit.
You do us a favour and just go on the public pavement, that's all.
I am on the public pavement.
You're not.
I am. He asked me to leave. They're not out here harassing me to tell me to leave.
We're doing it on their behalf, aren't we? They've asked us to ask you.
Okay.
Which we can do.
Yeah, you can do, and I can
I'm
decline,
asking
innit?
as a person.
Yeah, you're a person. I'm not a person, though.
Say that again, son. Say that again. What? What? You said that? Say that again. I'll kill my mum.